We are on YouTube now.
You can start the proceedings with the APB anthem, Tusita.
We are committed. Since 1988, we stand united. Our loyalty is with integrity. Do what is best for our community. We are the members of the APB,
serving all who are in our society.
be they wealthy, be they meek,
What's best for them we'll sing.
standing firm for all that we should be. We do what's good for banking governance. Learn the rules and give them prominence. Let's make sure of what is truly right. Then we'd be the trusted light. We are the members of the APB, serving all who are in our society.
Onwards to the future.
We do ascend with challenges and tests. We shall contend by building on the strength we uphold. With bad course ethics, we'll be bold. Empowering professionals, we are committed. Since 1988, we stand united. We stand united.
Good evening to all of you, and welcome to the Budget Forum organized by the Continuous Professional Development Committee of APB. To commence the session, first I would like to invite the President of APB, Mr. KB Rajapaksha, the Senior Deputy General Manager of People's Bank, for the welcome speech. Over to you, Mr. Rajapaksha.
Thank you, Anjali. Good evening. Welcome you all for APB Budget Analysis Forum. Due to the prevailing situation of the country, APB is coming to you virtual budget analysis. Actually, now very recently, Finance Minister presented his maiden budget. So the critical budget is there. So there are far-reaching proposals. While we are having challenge in future, especially debt repayment, but Sri Lanka is looking for lower fiscal deficit. I think it's a good time to, from the APB angle, from the resource person, we can analyze and get the clarifications. I believe we have excellent panel representing economists and senior veteran bankers, senior accountants. So I invite you all enjoy and clear any doubts, and hope this evening very rewarding and enlightening budget for you all. Thank you for special resource panel, Mr. Suresh Pera, Mr. Dilshan, and Mr. Riaz Mueller, and Dr. Kapila Senanayaka for your valuable insights given to this forum. Thank you very much. Over to you, Anjali.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Rajapaksha. So now let me introduce our guest speaker and the eminent panelists for today's forum. Actually, there is a change to the guest speaker today. So Mr. Artigala won't be able to join due to an unavoidable situation. But we have the pleasure of having Dr. Kapila Senanayaka instead. He's the Director General of Fiscal Policy, Ministry of Finance. And then joining as the panelists, we have Mr. Suresh Pereira, the Principal Tax and Regulatory Division of KPMG, Sri Lanka, and also Mr. Dilshan Rodrigo, the Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer of Hatton National Bank, and also the Chairman of HNB Finance. And then let me introduce our moderator for today's session, Mr. Riaz Mueller, the Managing Partner of KPMG. So it's a great pleasure to have all of you in our forum today. So first, I would like to invite Dr. Kapila Senanayaka for your speech. And Mr. Mueller, you can take over the session from there onwards. Right, thank you.
Right. Am I?
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Right. Good evening, all of you, and thank you, Anjali, for the kind introduction. So, as you clearly explained, our Secretary of Treasury is having urgent commitment, so suddenly I have to take this responsibility. So, I'll actually. It's my absolute pleasure to address this budget forum organized by Association of Professional Bankers. Sorry for this interruption. Although the Secretary of the Treasury was to attend this forum, he could not participate today due to an urgent work commitment. On behalf of him, I thank you for creating this platform to discuss the budget proposal, and I am sure that the thoughts, suggestions, and responses expressed in this forum today will aid the policymakers like us to better maneuver the policies set out in the budget. Therefore, I express my sincere gratitude for the APB for providing the opportunity to share our insight on this important occasion. It is recognized that these are challenging times, living considering the unprecedented condition brought forward by the pandemic, as you all know. The external sector of the country remains challenging. However, positive signs are also seen with the increase in exports and tourist arrival recently. The increase in inflation remains a concern in recent months. Nevertheless, it is expected to maintain inflation within single mid-digit level in 2022. In addition, the economy has bounced back, reflecting a V-shaped recovery from the setback experienced in 2022 owing to the pandemic. The series of well-meaning, carefully thought out proposals presented in the budget, primarily aimed at fiscal consolidation as the chairman explained, and also economic revival and social upliftment for the needy. while seeking to increase revenue without adding to the financial pressure of the ordinary public, the budget sought to rationalize government expenditure and also management of such expenditure. Though these initiatives, it is planned to reduce the budget deficit to 8.8% of GDP in 2022 from the anticipated budget deficit of 11.1% in 2021. It means this year. So in 2022 also we have recorded 11.1% of budget deficit. It is our expectation to gradually reduce it to 4.8% in 2025 and to ultimately achieve a balanced budget by 2028. Accordingly, it is expected to reduce the government debt to 89.2% of GDP by 2025 from the current level of over 100%. Budget proposal clearly set out the path for achieving fiscal consolidation, including proposals to increase tax revenue. As you all know, the surcharge tax was introduced to seek revenue from companies or individuals which recorded high profits and for whom effects of the pandemic remain at a minimum. We request the business community to consider this as an opportunity to contribute to the government finances, enabling the government to continue delivering essential public services and investing in priority sectors of the economy. The social security contribution applied on the turnover at the rate of 2.5% was introduced with the view of obtaining the contribution of the business community to rebuild the economy in the post-conflict environment. In addition, the value-added tax applied to banks and financial service providers was increased from 15% to 18%. These were many other there were many other proposals that covered the banking sector that attempted to enhance the financial inclusion. Banks are encouraged to convert their branches into smart banking units using digitalization, as some of the banks are still currently doing. Some of the banks are to be developed as one-stop shops that provide all services and facilities, including financial facilities and financial advice for the development of especially the micro, small and medium entrepreneurs. The budget also aspires to encourage the private sector. Required lands and tax concession will be provided to enable the private sector to establish an international school and hospital in each district. Further, public-private partnerships are sought for mixed development projects using land owned by department railways that are not being fully utilized in a productive manner at present. In addition, new product development and new startups are encouraged. New product investment zones will be established, focusing on a number of different sectors, including pharmaceuticals, raw materials for textile. I think you may already know that the government has already embarked on a fabric park at Eravur, rubber industrial production, pharma at Hambantota, export-based agro-processing, among others. These zones will enhance diversification and value addition of Sri Lanka's exports, while also focusing on producing import substitutes. In this regard, expansion of international market-oriented production of fruits, vegetables, spices, fish-based products, liquid milk, and commercial crops, enhancing necessary knowledge of flower growers in the context of growing flowers and foliage for the export market, promoting local handloom and batik industry to become USD 1 billion earner by 2025, enhancing Sri Lanka's share of gem and natural mineral resources in the global market, promoting Sri Lanka as a center for wellness tourism, and establishment of new Ayurveda treatment centers are recognized as key strategies. Further, new startups are facilitated by waiving of registration fee for new businesses in 2022 and consolidating fees levied by various institutions on business registration. The production economy will be facilitated by the increasing use of technology, facilitated through technoparks. I think NSB has already, NSB and People's Bank has already facilities for that. High techno agro parks, among other initiatives. In addition, the government is also focused on attracting FDIs and remove any impediments therein. It is proposed to review the procedures followed by the Board of Investment in attracting FDIs into country and to expeditiously look into whether condition currently imposed to facilitate attraction of FDIs should be relaxed and to identify suitable methods and formulate a program for implementation. While facilitating the economy to take off, the budget also delves right into rationalization of government expenditure. A number of proposals focus on reducing unnecessary expenditure of the public sector has been brought forward while enhancing the efficiency of public service delivery through digitalization, client-centered focus, and performance-based human resource management and results-based monitoring. Public expenditure rationalization focus on the members of parliament and executive of public service. This included extension of tenure of eligibility of pension of members of parliament for 5 years to 10 years, cutting down of world allowances of MPs and government, especially the executive officers, and reducing telephone allowances. In addition, electricity allowance of government officers are to be reduced, whereas construction activities in government offices are to be suspended for 2 years. The financial discipline of government institution is assured issuance of quarterly warrants instead of annual warrants that now we are adhering, and preventing requests for supplementary estimate by ministries. In addition, all government institutions are to prepare their plans relating to procurement, salaries and allowances, debt servicing, development and maintenance well in advance. Considering the increased life expectancy, I think when you look at now 60 years of age of person, his or her life expectancy would be more than like 13 years. So it was also proposed to increase the mandatory retirement age of public service to 65 years. This will allow government servants to be inactive for a longer period of time, like in other developed countries. In addition, new salary structure will be established for the public service by removing anomalies, and salary administrative procedures will be also simplified. In the same vein, a number of proposals, including preparation of client charter, praising the public service-based key performing indicators, that is called KPIs, and establishing an integrated result-based management system to monitor the progress. Further, monitoring of all infrastructure development project will be decentralized and procurement will be modernized through e-procurement. Now already government started that e-procurement process. These initiatives will also limiting grounds for corruptions. In addition, as you all know, SOEs were introduced with a number of reform with the objective of instilling business focus and financial discipline among them in order to reduce their burden to the treasury. Contemporary benchmark will be used to identify entities that have been incurring losses continuously and entities that are underutilized through the establishment of multidisciplinary consultative committee, which will propose a strategic way forward on the SOEs within the specific time frame. These SOEs will only be provided with capital allowances instead of current payment of recurrent expenditure to enable them to generate income by undertaking public and private construction activities and providing their services. Further, SOEs will be facilitated for better asset utilization. In addition, public investment program will be fast-tracked, maintaining efficiency, effectiveness, and transparency. This development in the public sector will largely benefit the business community and the society at large. And these proposals will assure that government will be a facilitator of production economy despite the expenditure rationalization. By cutting down the unnecessary expenses, the government will continue its focus on infrastructure development drive. This will focus on ensuring access to water, development of irrigation facilities, road development, renewable energy, and housing and urban development, and among others. Further to above, investment will focus on conservation of environment, including forest and wildlife, education infrastructure to establish 1,000 national schools, establishment of health-related infrastructure such as children's and maternal clinic and rural hospitals, vocational and technical training, and public security. Increased connectivity, as you all know, will be facilitated through the projects such as 100,000 kilometer road project and 5,000 bridges program and enhanced broadband connectivity through 5G technology. Furthermore, regional development is one of the key thrust areas of the budget, while focusing on development infrastructure and human resources at rural level, which would facilitate to enhance production at regional level and thereby reducing disparities among districts in Sri Lanka. Necessary action will be taken in this regard to provide basic required facilities such as electricity, water, roads, and fences to encourage the establishment of small and medium scale enterprises at regional and district levels, and thereby producing a number of employment opportunities at grassroots or district level. The proposal is spelled out in the budget 2022 among many other presented under the budget, attempt to transform our economy into an advanced manufacturing economy driven by innovation. This economy that we aspire to build will have uninterrupted access to facilities that enhance the performance of industries and businesses. Further, it is expected to revise the traditional laws and archaic regulation that hinder our production capacity. It is expected that the budget proposal will set the path to achieve an economic growth of more than 6% during 2022 to 2027 and reduce the budget deficit to 8.8% of GDP in 2022 and gradually reduce it to up to 1.5% in 2027. So Honorable Minister also having the clear target to having a surplus budget by 2028. This is facilitated through the economic inclusive development model introduced under the budget that provides growth opportunities for both individuals and businesses, while expanding the tax base together with the increase in tax compliance among individual and businesses. With this 2022 budget, the tax reform that introduced in the latter part of 2019 still remain. So there's a good sign for that. In addition, development expenditure will be increased to, that is public investment, to 7% in 2027 from the current level of 3.5% of GDP to 6% in 2024 and 7% in 2027. These aspirations would require the utmost support of the bankers like you all and the business community and industries, and we firmly believe that we can make the necessary changes in the public sector to facilitate the production industries and thereby economy guided by this path towards prosperity. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Once again, many thanks, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Senanayake. Once again, I want to thank you for joining this event with such short notice and for elaborating on the budget proposals. So now I would like to hand over the session to Mr. Riaz Meula for the continuation of the program. Over to you, Mr. Riaz.
Okay, thank you, Anjali. I hope everybody can hear me. Right. Dr. Kapila Senanayake, thank you for presentation that you made. I must say that there are some very interesting features in the budget, particularly on rationalizing of expenditure and trying to aim for a budget surplus over time. But there are a few queries that, which questions that have come up, which I would like to take the opportunity to raise with you. The first one, and particularly I must also mention that the business community is appreciative of the fact that the government wants to make sure that there is a consistent tax policy that was enunciated in 2019 is maintained. But there is one query that people are asking. We know that the 2019 we did away with payee and withholding tax, and I'm aware that lots of parties did in their proposals to the government urged the government to reintroduce payee and withholding tax, because for the simple reason that it is much more easier for administration for all concerned, the department, the taxpayer who only gets a salary and interest income, he doesn't have to open a tax file, and also the money comes in easily for the government, etc. And also they believe that this is not a change in tax policy, because only a change in tax administration. Would you like to just tell us any thinking behind the ministry not opting for reintroduction of payee and withholding tax?
Thank you very much for your questions. I think we received numerous requests from various individuals, companies, and other sectors to reimpose withholding tax and pay. However, the government had a firm commitment to stay the tax policy reform that introduced in the beginning of 2020. So without that's why with the budget 2022 also the government hasn't stick on this tax policy. However, as Department of Fiscal Policy also we analyzed this issue, and we had some suggestions as well as the Ministry of Finance. I already well taken your idea as well. We'll discuss this in detail maybe in however, at this point, that's actually our stance on this. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kapila. Actually, from purely selfish point of view, the accountants will like it because they can make more money filing tax returns for people. But I think overall, from point of view of simplicity, it would have been easier for taxpayers who don't have any other income other than salary and interest. Now, there's another question that has come. We understand this surcharge. I know it's similar to the super gains tax. Even Dr. Artikala Nas Vemida did mention that it was a similar concept. But one issue people are asking is where companies have issued interim dividends to shareholders. And if the money, this is cash flow issue ultimately. If they have been declared dividends and money are in shareholders and they don't have enough profits to pay the 25%, how does the government plan to deal with that issue? It's a practical issue that's come up.
Yeah, I think this is again the very good question. As you all know, so I don't want to repeat the budget proposal. So here we are now reviewing this, your concern about the dividends and also how we are going to impose this new taxes. So what would be the exclusion and all these arrangements. So today also we had a lengthy discussion on this your issue. So it's still under discussion, so I can't express.
All right. Okay. So maybe I can add one more question that has also come up on the social contribution levy, which I think everybody knows that you need to contribute, and I think we need to all dig deep into our pockets and help, particularly the people who have been affected. But there are some practical issues. This is similar to the NBT, as it was earlier 2%, now it is 2.5%. We had the ESC, which is advanced payment. But last year or year before, we deregistered all the NBT, because we did away with NBT. The practical issues people are asking: would you want everybody to have to re-register again? And then a question that some people are asking is, for example, contractors who have already agreed on the margins and the fixed price contracts, and these contracts run over several years sometimes. How are they going to manage to build in this 2.5% when it comes off the top at the revenue? Some practical issues. I'm sure you are looking at this, but this question has come up, so I thought I'll convey this to you.
Yeah, I think yes, as you clearly explained, this is similar to NBT tax, and however, we have to think about the for companies, they have the kind of thin margin. So it's really affect their profitability, and also they don't have much capacity to pay 2.5% out of their margin. So we have well thought all these issues, and now we are drafting all these the exclusion, and also what should be so this new tax look like. So if you could, this community can send us your suggestions, that would be great, so that they can incorporate your suggestion to the draft. Because if you can send it within 1 week's time, so we have to finish it, because the cabinet approval to finish this drafting quickly. So if you could send your suggestion by within 2 or 4 days time, that would be great. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you, Dr. Siranaka, for participating at short notice and for answering these questions. As usual, you have been very forthright and very accommodating. So thank you very much. I know that you have to leave, but you're more than welcome to stay as long as you want. But thank you for joining us and answering the questions.
Thank you, Rivas. And actually, this was a great opportunity share our thoughts with you. I would happy if I could be with you in the rest of time, but still next there's another line of webinar coming. So may I leave for this time? So thank you very much, and good evening all of you, and thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kapila. Thank you very much for your contribution to this program. All right, so let's move on, because I know we are running a bit behind time. Can I now invite Suresh Pereira to make his presentation? Suresh, we may also have to economize on time. I know we were given 15 minutes each. We may have to push it down to about 10 minutes so that we'll have some time left for discussion. So if you can try and concise it to 10 minutes, it will be great. Over to you, Suresh.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. And let me see whether I can do something within 10 minutes that will make sense for you all. Let's see. Right, I hope that you all can see my slides.
Yeah, we can.
Right, I'll let's get into presentation mode. Are you okay? Fine, no? Right, so the budget is this one. Let us minimize this. The budget proposed to collect new 304 billion coming from surcharge tax. This is the super gains tax that we have been discussing. That's about 100 billion that is being expected, and as the minister pointed out, it's coming from about 63 companies. Social security contribution, or what we have been calling the NBT, we introduced, is to contribute 140 billion, and then the financial VAT rate increase to 14, and special goods and services tax, which was introduced in the last budget to be implemented with effect from 1st Jan, another 50 billion. So altogether 304 billion is what is expected from the new taxes, the new tax proposal.
Suresh, your slide is still on the first page. Slide is still on the first page.
Okay, now?
Or is it only for me? I don't know.
Yeah, anybody?
Yeah,
Okay,
it is still the
it's
first page.
It's still on the first page.
Yeah.
Stuck on the first page.
Yes, okay, what is that?
I think you to close it and restart it in presentation mode.
Yeah, I went to the presentation mode. Let's see. Okay, are we okay now? No, this is something later.
No.
Forget. Give me 1 minute. I'll switch.
Oh.
Okay. Slides are visible? No.
Not yet.
Ganesh, why don't you just talk through the key points?
Yeah, just talk. Okay.
Yeah, I think I'll do that.
All right.
Right. So basically, can you see me
Yeah.
now?
No, just talk on the key points. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
That's
fine. It's okay. So basically, I think the key concern in relation to this budget is the social security contribution, as the minister, as Dr. Kapil Sena also pointed out, and as everybody is pointing out, the consistency of the tax policy has been maintained, and most of us were basically expecting that there will be revisions in relation to the rate, the thresholds, etc., because of the situation in the country, and that the policy that was changed, or the new the reduction of taxes that we experienced at the beginning of 2020, it's not sustainable. So basically, we expected the change, no change has taken place. It's a consistency that we see all around, other than in relation to the social security contribution. So let me speak a little bit in relation to this. And so what is this? As Mr. Reyes Mina pointed out, this is NBT in another name. What is NBT? NBT is basically turnover tax in another name. Now, the point in relation to this turnover tax, why we are all complaining, is that it is cascading. And as you recall, in 1998, Sri Lanka decided to do away with this cascading tax and introduced value-added tax. And however, in our tax system, under the name Defense Levy, National Security Levy, and the NBT, which was introduced in 2009 with the promise that it will remain only for 2 years. It remained almost for 10 years. And at last, we basically have a system where only value-added tax is being levied and not turnover tax. Because what we had in Sri Lanka is a hybrid system, tax on turnover as well as tax on value addition. So that was rectified in at the beginning of 2020. But what we see now is, again, that error is being committed. We are bringing a tax on the turnover while there is a tax on value addition also. So I think most of us who are basically looking at it from the theory side is not happy, but then government needs money, so that is what the government is doing. My kind proposal to the government in relation to this is, yes, let's try to collect that tax that is needed by a different means rather than taxing it on the turnover. So how do you do that thing? That is basically to go for a different type of value-added tax, like in the case of Bangladesh, or basically what we see in Japan, other countries, because there are 4 ways in which the tax could be value-added tax could be collected and could be computed, value addition could be computed, and the value that could be computed. Now, people who are in the banking sector are very well aware of this. Now, we do have this system of what is called the direct additive VAT, that is basically what we call the financial VAT, in addition to the invoice credit VAT also. Now, my proposal is that instead of taxing 2.5% on the turnover, let's look at the value addition, just like the way the value addition is computed in the banking sector in relation to the other sectors also, and thereafter apply a tax rate on that. I think that will ensure there is no cascading effect, and that will also do justice to the industries like the retail sector, where basically the margin is extremely low. So they will not be out of pocket if the rate is applied on the value addition. Right now, I'd like to point out, I think this slide is visible to everybody?
Yes, yes.
Right, okay. So in relation to the banks, how this how the NBT was computed. NBT was never on the top line. It was not on the turnover. It was on the value addition. So that's the correct way of basically applying another tax in case you need. But then the question that will arise in relation to the banking sector, financial sector is, do we need another tax to collect on the value addition itself when we do have financial VAT, which is basically now going to be at 18% on the value addition. So all we need to do is this 18% could be increased by further few points and collect by way of financial VAT. So that's, I think that will be the most convenient way of collecting the tax without without having more administrative burden on the banks and the financial institutions also, so that they will not have to file another tax return, fill another extra tax for the payment slip, etc. All right. So in addition to that, what should I talk about? Now let me see. Right. So this rate going from 15% to 18% in relation to the financial VAT, budget specifically says is only for 1 year period, only for the year of assessment, only for the year of assessment, not only for the calendar year 2022. But again, I'm pointing out that that is exactly how in 2009, nation building tax was also introduced with specific reference in the budget speech in 2009 that it will be only for 2 years, and it remained for 10 years. So let's keep our fingers crossed how this, how long this will continue. Let me have a look at, now we looked at the, yeah, let's go back to the surcharge tax, this 25% of the super gains tax. Now, there are a few points that we have to keep in mind in addition to what Mr. Riyasmila pointed out. When super gains tax was in operation in 2015, it was based on the qualifying criteria, or the liable criteria was 2 billion, just like in this proposal also 2 billion, but 2 billion on the profit before tax. If a company had profit before tax exceeding 2 billion, then that company was called upon to account for 25% of its taxable income payable in 3 installments to the government as super gains tax. So what we have in the budget is taxable income over 2 billion, not profit before tax. Now, there's a difference between the profit before tax and taxable income, and you can see some of the companies that are having, let's see, the foreign income, the foreign dividends, those are all not getting included in the taxable income. So you can see sometimes a company that has very high profits, accounting profits, but they may not have such a great taxable income. Their taxable income will be very low, and that is going to be a blessing for them because they are not going to get caught to the super gains tax according to this methodology that has been introduced. Other things that that we will have to answer. For instance, the year of assessment 2021, that's going to be the year of assessment that will be based on the tax for computation of the surcharge tax, this 25%. Now that year is over, audits have been completed, audited accounts have been signed off. So where is this amount to be charged? Just like Mr. Mila pointed out, okay, when the dividends have also been declared, how so it's retrospective. So how this to be accounted for? Now I think we need to go back to 2015 as to, because the issues that came up in 2015, those are the same issues that are coming up here also now. Now how was this accounting issue resolved in 2015? The other Institute of Chartered Accountants got involved and they gave a direction as to how to account for it. So I believe in this instance also there has to be an involvement from the Institute of Chartered Accountants and give a direction as to how to account for this super surcharge tax also. Let's move to another slide. Right, another thing that you have to keep in mind again, in relation to the group of companies, how was this super gains tax computed at that time? There was a different rule. Now this rule is not there in the budget speech. I'm highlighting this one to see whether this rule will also be repeated when this enactment of this surcharge tax takes place, right? So what was the rule? The rule was in case of a group of companies, the aggregate group was checked. Whether the aggregate group of group PBT was group PBT was above 2 billion, then every company in the group had to pay, even if that single company was below 2 billion. But on the other hand, if the aggregate PBT of the group was below 2 billion, only the companies exceeding the 2 billion had to pay. So very interesting rule that was there in relation to the group of companies. So let's keep our fingers crossed whether that rule will also come into, will be in embedded in drafting the new legislation. Okay, let's move to the next one. Right, so other issues that we have to talk in relation to the surcharge tax, what will happen to the share prices, basically the moment the the shareholders get to know that this tax is going to hit the profits, whether the price, of course, the prices will be impacted because of that, the share prices in the market, and right, so dividends will be discussed. So keep going. Right, no, I think we touched on that one also. Let's keep going. So right, another point that I want to point out in relation to the 2.5% tax is, when the NBT was there were exemptions in relation to NBT. For instance, the exporters, the foreign currency earners were not liable for NBT. Pharmaceutical trade and so many others were not liable for NBT. Whether these exemptions will be considered when drafting the 2.5% social contribution levy also. Would the exporters would also be called upon to account for this 2.5%. Interesting things to see. Okay, there's something. No, let's skip this one. No, okay. In relation to VAT tax, I think so. Another important point that we have to keep in mind that we see in this budget proposal is there is not even a single amendment to the Inland Revenue Act. But there are two amendments coming to the VAT Act, the rate increase, and two exemptions have been an exemption has been introduced to the VAT schedule. Now, what we see is in that in fact it's an existing exemption. It has been reworded, and what we see here is after this exemption, the rewording, surgical and dental instruments have been removed. So in other words, going forward, surgical and dental instruments would be exposed to VAT. Keep going. Right, the special GST. This is again, this is not much to do with the banking industry. Special GST, which was mentioned in the earlier budget in relation to 5 industries: liquor, cigarette, betting, gaming, the sin industries, and the motor vehicles and the telecommunication, is to be introduced with effect from 1st of January. And there's expected revenue of 50 billion. Now, again, we have to keep our fingers crossed to see whether there will be multiple rates, or would it be a single rate, whether this is going to be again a tax on value addition or this is going to be a tax on turnover. So these things are to be, we have to wait and see the draft law to get an idea, right? Right. So what we will see is, yeah.
I think we will try and because we are running a bit tight on time.
Yeah. Let's okay. I will start from here and we'll take, yeah.
Yeah, we'll take on under question and answers. I know you have a few more points, right? Can I quickly now invite Dilshan to make his comments? I know as a banker, Dilshan will have a lot of comments to make. Dilshan, over to you.
Thank you, Riaz. I'll try to keep my comments extremely short because I think a lot of things that I have already, that I was planning to say has already been said by Kapila, Senanayaka and Suresh. So I will just talk about the key headline points that I want to make. The first is about the role played by the banks to support businesses and the impact to banks so far, right, until the budget came through. Then the impact of the budget on the banking and financial services sector. And the third, the current issues and the challenges facing banks. I think I'll just focus on those 3 points. I'm very much aware that I'm talking to the banking community here, so I don't want to tell the obvious. So basically, you start with the first point, right? I mean, I think everybody knows the role that the banking sector has played in supporting the industry in the last 2 years or so. You know, this whole series of unfortunate events started in late 2018, and then with the constitutional crisis, and then followed by the Easter Sunday bombing. And since then, I think there are companies in the tourism sector who have been availing of moratoriums from 2019 to date, and will be extended until June next year. So over 3 years of debt moratoriums. That means they didn't have to pay a single cent to banks for 2 years, and now it will be going on extended to 3 years. Then there are companies in the non-tourism sector, so related industries, impacted industries like construction, food and beverages, transport. Certain industries also have availed of debt moratoriums for a shorter period of time, maybe a year and a half, and those moratoriums will be extended till December this year. In addition to that, we have supported businesses in terms of working capital financing with the support from the central bank guarantee scheme. So that again was a very significant amount for the banking sector. I think almost 250 billion worth of working capital financing was expended towards the industry to support their revival efforts. And the third area was in terms of business revival. I think that's the most understated conversation we are having, because when we initially started off with the moratoriums in April, I remember in my case, in our bank, we had about 25% of our customers availing of moratoriums. That came down to now, in the latest round, which is the fourth moratorium exercise we just concluded, down to 7%. So from 25% to 7% of our portfolio now under moratorium. So which means that 18% of the portfolio has revived. And I'm sure it's the same with all the banks. So we must mention that, a lot of effort has gone into businesses themselves, as well as bankers supporting businesses in their revival efforts. So over and above the working capital financing and the moratoriums that have been given, supporting them in their visioning exercises, engaging with them, sharing best practices, supporting supply chain linkages between customers to be able to adapt, as well as the digital, getting all our customers. It has been a real fillip for digital as a result of what took place. I think a lot of our banks have been investing in digital in the last 10 years, but the kind of traction we saw on digital in the last 2 years has been just simply amazing. So the banks were very well prepared, really saw a huge spike in volumes because, people really got on board with QR-based payments, app-based payments, wallets, digital signatures. So there has been a lot of traction, and I must say the regulator also has played a big role, a lead role in encouraging the paperless, checkless, cashless society that we are moving on to. So overall, the impact as a result of this on the banks is about, I would say, close to about 100 billion rupees of interest that has not been collected. Of course, we have taken credit for it. We have accrued the income, and so have the companies also have accrued the income in their the expense in their books. But over 100 billion as an industry of interest that has not been collected, and that is over and above the capital moratoriums, which I have not even spoken about. So it's a significant impact on the banking sector. And over and above that, we've seen in the budget a triple whammy of the turnover-based tax, which is for companies above 120 million turnover. So obviously all the banks get caught in that net. And the implication there is about 140 billion worth of tax collection in that area, which has been planned. And I believe that almost 70% of that will come from the banking sector. Second is the income tax surcharge, which is affecting 62 companies. Again, the government is planning to collect 100 billion rupees of tax revenue on this basis. And again, I would estimate close to at least 50% will come from the banking sector. And then the VAT, financial services VAT, increasing from 15 to 18%. again will contribute about 14 billion. So of the increase in the revenue that the government is estimating, around 50% would come from these three sources alone, of which the banking sector would be contributing a very, very significant portion. So again, the impact to the P&L of banks, of course, we expect that the income tax levy would be accounted from the retained profits, like was the case previously. But overall, the tax collection increase is about, I would say, 50 to 60% of the earnings over and above what we normally pay as tax. So these are, you're talking tax incidence of 70 to 80% all in all for the banking sector for 2022, which is extremely significant. I mean, I cannot understate how significant that is. And then it's also fair to say that in the last 2 years or so, the impairment provisions the banks have been making have been exceeding the profits, right? And it's been that significant in terms of the collective impairment and the individual impairments. The accounting bodies have been pushing us. We also have been, I understand the significance of this and the importance of making these provisions. But, from a earnings point of view, when you take into account the impairments and the taxes, there is very little left for, retaining earnings. So what is the significance of all this to banks in general? Obviously, right now we are faced with several challenges. One is the lack of dollars, the foreign exchange issue. So this is this puts a lot of pressure on us right now in terms of supporting our customers in their rebuilding efforts, particularly the importers. Of course, we are trying as far as possible to support those customers and sort of moving our customers towards the industries that Kapila Senayaka spoke about, production, import substitution, assembly, IT, education, health. These are the industries that we want to drive our customers towards. But it is still, we must not forget the fact that importers, we were an import-led economy until recently. So it is those importers who will actually probably have to migrate their businesses to these areas for which they will need investment. And bankers have to be able to support them. But we are challenged to be able to support them right now with the Forex challenges that we have in terms of managing our books and managing the network and the liquidity positions that we face right now. Second issue, of course, stemming from what I said earlier, retained profits are going to be very, very significantly impacted by these tax proposals, which means that the amount of money that we have for investment in digital, which some of our banks may have done a lot more before, and some banks are probably a little late in terms of making those investments, which are very, very significant, and having the adequate cash flows and the funds to be able to make that is going to be a challenge, given the pressures we have on one side in terms of retained earnings, on the other side in terms of dollars, because we also have to invest with IT companies. Most of the software is actually provided by global companies. Of course, we need to support the local ICT industry, but sometimes the skills we don't have the skills to be able to support us on software development in specialized areas, whether it's payment and cash management, whether it is digital layers, app development. So there are multiple challenges these areas. I think I probably just touched on the key points that I want to discuss. I won't take too long. Maybe that's enough, Riaz, for you to set the stage to ask questions.
Thanks, Darshan. I'm going to ask some quick rapid-fire questions because of time constraint. You did say, and I do empathize with the banks. When you get hit for 70% of your earnings getting taxed. The context I'm asking is that the special surcharge, unlike the super gains tax, is being based on taxable income, which means all of those companies which got generous tax holidays, who are not paying any tax at all, even if they have huge profits of 4 or 5 billion, will not be subject to the GST. Whereas the banks and other companies who are already paying taxes and who are showing still 2 billion of profits available, which of course is taxed income, are being taxed 25%. So do you see the equity in the, do you see an equity because the same guys who are being taxed are being flogged for more money, whereas the people who are not paying any taxes at all and enjoying generous tax holidays are exempted? I think, like Suresh said, if they made the 25% on profits, earned profits, then everybody gets into the net. Now what happens is only the guys who pay taxes get taxed more. The guys who had tax holidays don't get taxed at all. Quick comment from you, and then I'll ask Suresh.
Riaz, I won't answer that question because you know the answer. But I just say that the safety and stability of the bank should not be taken for granted. There is a huge role that the banking sector plays to the real economy. All it takes is, some of the smaller banks, more vulnerable banks to have to, face some of these pressures, and that can have huge impacts, knock-on impacts, multiplier impacts on the entire economy. So we need to be very, very careful in terms of enforcement of these measures, because, but I do understand the pressures from the government's point of view or the central bank's point of view in terms of making the tax revenues. I mean, we have been working towards a 2 trillion tax collection for many years now. For at least 3 years, we have not achieved it. So there is a sense of desperation in terms of, trying to raise this money, and what better place than the banks, because banks are expected to be making too much money. But we need to be very mindful of the impacts that you can have on the real economy if there are even a shaking or a little bit of uncertainty or instability that can come through from the banking sector. I think that has to be very well thought through when it comes to implementation.
Yeah, Suresh, I'm going to ask the same question from you, but is this an oversight, or is it not something that we could make representation to? Everybody sympathizes the government needs money, and this is a one-off tax. But maybe if they convert it, change it from surcharge on the taxable income to earned profits before income, then I think there's some level of equity where everybody is pocketing out.
Okay, so that's correct. Yeah, that's why I said the base that we found in the super gains tax is more equitable compared to the base that has been introduced in the surcharge tax. In other words, it should be profit before tax or profit after tax. It should be the accounting profit, not the taxable income, not tax profit.
Okay. All right. So maybe that's something that that companies can make some representations on, because Kapila did say that they are open to some suggestions from the corporate community. Final income, I know we are 15 minutes over time. I'm going to have one final question, particularly because this is the bankers forum. The elephant in the room, so to say, is the Forex crisis. I mean, it has impacts on importers, exporters. We have had 5 gazettes over the last 6 months about currency conversion. A quick comment from you, Dilshan. How is it impacting, the whole banking and financial sector business in terms of, attracting foreign investments and FDIs? And then I'll ask Suresh from an accounting point of view what his thoughts are, tax point of view. Dilshan, over to you.
So I think I briefly alluded to the issue earlier, but I just want to say that it's time for the business community to think country and not self. We rely significantly on exports and remittances, and we require these funds to come through formal channels to meet our essential imports. So as the country, rebalances its structural, make structural adjustments to the economy and move towards a production-oriented economy that Mr. Kapila Senanayake mentioned, in the interim, I think we need to be very, very mindful that the country needs the remittance income and the remittance flows and the exports to come through. It's very disappointing to know that, in the last few months, the numbers have actually come down, not up, despite all the, papers, the draft gazettes and the circulars that have been issued by the central bank. So this is putting a lot of pressure on the balance of payments and putting a lot of pressure on our customers. And at a particular point, even the banks are helpless because we have to manage our books, and the role of the banks as an administrator, to be able to be given a lot more pressure to say you need to monitor the inflows and outflows through the exporters as well as the remittances, and then play that role of a watchdog is something a little unfair, because it's very difficult for a bank to play that role. At the end of the day, it's in the hearts and the minds and the spirit of people in terms of how they are going to, interpret and really conform. It's really up to that, So as Sri Lankans, I think we need to play our part. It's very disappointing to see a lot of money now going through the informal channels.
Yes.
Money is being parked overseas. These things are at the end of the day is going to come back and bite all of us. So I think it's important that people understand their role and play ball and support the regulator to the extent possible. Without that, we're going to get away from this.
I agree. I think we need to think country first, and I think that's a very important point you made. Suresh, any closing comments? I know we are over time, but any closing comments?
If I make the comment in relation to the same issue, you see, earlier we had the exchange control regime. From there, we moved to a foreign exchange regime. My question is Sri Lanka matured enough to go for this foreign exchange regime? Because the moment things are liberalized, we find basically, as Dilshan rightly pointed out, we are taking money out and we are not bringing the money into Sri Lanka. But when you compare countries like India, Bangladesh, in fact, this gazette that has been issued recently is based on the Indian gazette. The RBI, the same circular is there. So that's why we find basically in countries like Bangladesh, India, the reserves are high, but in Sri Lanka, sometimes this is also an issue that this policy is also is contributing to that.
Okay. I think that's a good point. I think we sometimes need to have a little more of the stick approach as well, instead of the carrot approach. Doesn't always work. So I know we can keep discussing more and more. Some interesting thoughts were exchanged, but I think I will call this discussion and webinar to a halt in the interest of time, and then pass it on to Anjali. Anjali, over to you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Meola. So we have come to the end of the forum. I'm sure it was a very informative and an important session for all the bankers. So on behalf of APB, I would like to thank Mr. Dr. Kapila Senanayake, Mr. Dilshan Rodrigo, and Mr. Suresh Pereira for accepting our invitation and spending your valuable time with us, sharing your insights. And also to you, Mr. Meola, for moderating the session. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And I would like to thank Christine and Isuru for organizing this event, and also to the CPDC committee of APB, the council members and the advisors for all your support, and also for all the participants. So have a good night and stay safe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.